Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's Danny Limelight. And I need all of you to subscribe to According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and all other platforms.
What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of talking to my friend. He is a former CXF bantamweight champion. He is Saxon's Muay Thai products, the one and only gorgeous Georgie Garcia. Gorgeous George, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. Just hanging in there, taking it day by day, like the rest of us are. So.
Yeah, man, but you're looking pretty fit, dude. Like, most people are the Corona weight champions, myself included. You're looking pretty fit.
Yeah, thank you. First off, this shirt got dried a couple times, so it's nice and snug. So it makes me look a little more fit than normal. I'll just go ahead and throw that out there. But aside from everything that's going on, I still try to stay in shape and try to do as best as I can and what I can to just be prepared. I know there's not a lot of shows and not a lot of fights coming up, but I want to be the guy that is ready if they need somebody to kind of fill in for a fight or for a show, UFC, whatever shows that are going on. I want to be that guy. I've been itching since, what was it, 2019, 2020 fall. I think it's the last time I fought. It was almost a little over a year ago. And yeah, since then I've been itching, so just staying ready and hopefully I can get something this year, the next couple of months. Yeah.
And that's the crazy thing, because obviously the year that passed us, 2020, was all types of madness for a lot of people. I think everybody got just a touch, if not more than a smattering of craziness, right? But for those who were ready, theoretically, if you were waiting for the call for one of the big shows, Bellator, LFA, and UFC, there were more calls getting answered, in our Southern California kind of territory and beyond than there ever had been in recent memory. So what was your take on all of that?
I think because of like the whole pandemic, and obviously now they're taking like extra precautions and certain protocols to make sure everybody's okay. I think because of that, a lot of people were, testing positive for COVID. So obviously either they had to scratch the fight or kind of just pull the guy out, which kind of left an empty slot for somebody to kind of step up, and take over, or not take over, but at least fill in for the show. So I think a lot of that opportunity came from that. Aside from injuries and people point out, due to other reasons, because that happens on a daily basis. But I think more so because of, you're getting tested the week of, and you're hoping that you're cleared so you can still fight. And then usually, obviously a lot of people are testing positive and they kind of just get pulled from the card. And if there's still one fighter left, the guy's like, well, I still want to fight. I'm ready. I'm healthy. I don't want to, kind of waste this time. So there's a lot of openings, a lot of opportunities for those people to kind of step up and fill in that slot.
No, absolutely. But I mean, taking the opportunities as they played has been not just a staple of your career, but also your life, because I mean, you've accomplished and overcome quite a great deal in your young life and career, but you're a tenured young veteran. There's more. I mean, you've had your fair share of fight of the nights. You've had your share of championships and international fights, right? So how did it start? Gorgeous George's entry to combat sports. How did that all come about?
Well, I wrestled before high school. I used to take karate, like traditional karate, like the Cobra Kai, the Karate Kid. I was really like deep into that, and I did that for about 10 years. I ended up getting my black belt, and then from there, at the time, I was in high school, I started wrestling as well. So I would, go to school, I'd wrestle, and then finish practice, and then go and still practice like my traditional martial arts. And then from there, you kind of look into more like karate fights, more wrestling matches. You kind of see like where that level could take you, and around that time, I think around the end of high school, fresh out of high school, I started really getting into MMA. I started watching fights, and I'm just trying to pick up on stuff and how this works, how that works, because I'm still new to it. And yeah, it kind of just drew my attention because of the martial arts background, my wrestling background, and I'm like, hey, let me give this a shot. Let me see what all the hype is about. And so I was training. I don't really tell this story a lot, but I was training for an underground fight, and it was completely like illegal. Yeah, I don't really talk about it a lot, but I was training for this underground fight, and this was at like some hookah bar. Some guy I met through just like friends. He owned a hookah bar, and he would like set up fights like in the middle of the night, 11, 12 o'clock at night. Kind of like what you see. What's the movie? Never Back Down, I believe, right? I think it's that. Yeah. I think it's that. Yeah. So it was kind of like that. Just show up at 11 o'clock at night. You park in the back in the parking lot. You're going in through the back door because obviously you don't want to get in trouble. And then they threw like those crash pads, like the judo mats, like those. They threw those. It was like 2 or 3 of them. It was a very small square, and there was no ropes. There was no commission. This wasn't sanctioned. And yeah, people were just standing around. That was like the ropes. That was like the outside, like the cage, right? It was just people standing around. And I think I fought. I won. I wasn't very good, but I had my wrestling background, and I won like maybe $100, $75, something like that. And then from there, I'm like, hey, I think I want to try this. So from there, actually, that's when I started to train and look for a gym, and then it kind of just leading me into, meeting with Julio and Saxons and everybody at the gym, and obviously, like they say, the rest is history from there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you think about it, I mean, to put it all into perspective, right? As an amateur, you don't get any money at all, right? It's almost like NCAA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you can, as an amateur athlete, you can't get any type of revenue from any kind, from anywhere, right? And then you go into, I mean, speaking of things that aren't said, there are actually promotions that people know that you actually, as a fighter, have to pay the promotion to fight for, right?
Yeah.
So with that all being said, you're kind of ahead of the game. The fact that you even got $100 because most people will probably give life and limb for a hot dog and a soda.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I guess you could say I never. That's interesting. You said I never really thought about it like that. Because I was just like, $100, because I had no idea how fights worked. I didn't know who you would talk to or anything like that. So I'm like, okay, you say there's a fight, I'll take it. And I ended up winning $100. But yeah, I guess I was a little ahead of the game. Comparing to obviously the amateur level where they don't get to make money or anything like that. So.
I mean, it's brilliant. You kind of, but again, you're showing a lot of experience in your youth, But after that first kind of underground fight experience, like, did you end up? I mean, was that just based on the skills that you brought, as a former, as a karate black belt and as a wrestler?
Yeah, it definitely was. Like I said, I had like, some karate strikes, and a lot of the strikes were old school. So a lot of them were like open hand. So you can't throw any open hand strikes, but I had a little bit of that. I definitely had my wrestling, and I had like one submission, and it was the arm triangle, I believe. And the only reason I learned it, or the only way I learned it, because I used to work with my wrestling coach, even though I was out of high school, I would still go up back to my high school, and I would still, for a workout and just to help the other kids. There was one of the assistant coaches there who would, he knew some jiu-jitsu, and he would always beat me up. And he would always catch me in the arm triangle. Like, he would take me down and just put me in the arm triangle. And I'm like, man, I can't get out of this. But, so he's showing me some tips. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. So I ended up winning by that arm triangle. So for the whole, few weeks or a month or so, however long I was training for, I kept getting caught in the arm triangle, and I actually ended up using that to win that fight. So it's kind of interesting to see all that play out.
That's great. Now, the great Don McGuire of the Fighter's Voice with Don McGuire wants to know, how does it feel to be so gorgeous and yet so dangerous?
Good question. Well, first of all, I'm not as gorgeous as people think. Like you said, I've had my fair share of fight of the nights and some tough fights, but I appreciate the comment. But so dangerous, I think it would be just from constantly being, having that learning ability, just able to pick up things and kind of just, turn it into something extravagant, I guess, and having that killer instinct. Like I'm a nice guy outside the cage. I'm very, very polite, super approachable. But in the cage, you just have to have that switch, and kind of turn on and just be ready to go for the kill, I guess.
No, 100%. And now he does throw a little bit of shade because he says, although my mustache is more on point than the Stash MMA. So,
Oh, no, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. I know it's a little short. Unfortunately, I can't curl it because we're always having to wear the mask. So I decided to do a little grooming and kind of, trim out the wild hairs and everything. So that way, when it fully grows back, it can be nice and perfect. But I know there's a lot of mustaches out there that are a little bit better than mine. But we're all one. Every mustache is just as powerful as the next.
that's, you gotta trim it up. You gotta make it look nice. I'm just saying. You don't want to look like
Just
water, from
it's like a haircut. Every few weeks or every month or so, you go and get your hair trimmed a little bit. That way, it stays nice and neat. So that's what I've been doing with mine. I've been focused on just keeping it a little bit cleaner.
Yeah, yeah. The soon-to-be missus can appreciate that. So
Absolutely.
just say it. Now, after that first fight, what was, did you kind of feel like, okay, I kind of got the hang of it? Obviously, you went to the pay window, so you didn't do that bad. But did you go like, maybe I should refine the skills? Maybe I should join a gym? Like, what was the action?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm someone who just loves learning, like, and I mean to the point where if someone comes in the gym and let's say they have less experience than me, but maybe they have something that they're good at that maybe I'm not that good at. So I'm always someone who wants to learn and get better. And even if you tell me it's perfect, I'm always going to try and perfect it even more. So after that, obviously, I knew I had a lot of a room to fill, a lot of mistakes to kind of sharpen. And of course, I'm just a fan of learning and getting better. So after that, I knew it's like, okay, if I really wanted to take this serious, I have to join a gym. I have to get coaches. I had some of my buddies and my cousin, corner me. Which they have experience in wrestling and everything, but to obviously that elite level, you have to get the elite level training, coaching, everything. All the everything that comes with it. So yeah, definitely reached out to try and join a gym and obviously start taking this a little more serious.
Now, what gym did you first step into?
So I first started with 10 Planet Burbank, and that was with Alder Hampel. And I don't know if that's the time that Eddie was there. Or he had just, because I know he was teaching at 10 Planet Burbank for a while, and then I was training there for a couple months, and then that's when Alder had moved to Saxon, and they had teamed up for a couple of years. So I ended up just moving with them, and then I just stayed with Saxon since, and just been sharpening my tools with everybody there and trying to just improve on everything.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I feel like I know the answer to this question, but Don McGuire wants to know, what is the one mentor that changed up your walk in the sport?
One mentor. Oh, that's a good question. It's kind of a hard question. There's a handful of people. I don't want to say a couple, but there's a handful of people that kind of mentored me. Obviously, first and foremost, are my coaches. As much knowledge as I have, like I'm always gonna look at my coaches as they're gonna have more knowledge than me. If I'm good, they're gonna be better. If I'm smart, they're gonna be smarter. If I'm fast, they're faster, right? So things like that. So I always look at my coaches for as my mentors. Obviously Coach Julio, which I've been with him since I was 19. So it's been 10 years, a little more than 10 years. My wrestling coach, Kenny Johnson from Black House, my boxing coach, Coach Robert, strength and conditioning coach, Taylor, jiu-jitsu coach, Coach Timmy, the list goes on. But those are, to name a few, those are the people that I actually, look to as a mentor, especially if I'm trying to, in a sense, be like them, you know, and obviously they're pouring their knowledge into me. So I'm always looking to them for advice, whether it's about training or whether it's about fighting or stuff like that. The wheels don't stop turning even when I'm asleep, so I'm always trying to, like, I don't want to say imitate them, because I still want to be myself and have my own style, but I definitely look to them or look up to them, in a great manner.
No, 1,000%. And Don McGuire, who's had Coach Kenny on his show a multitude of times, says he's 100% legit. Kenny Johnson,
Dude,
Bolt Wrestling.
that guy is legit. Like, if you don't know by now, then you need to at least take one practice to find out how legit he is. He will break you and make a man out of you. And that's one thing I love. I want to try and find new boundaries, and that's what my coaches are about. They're about just pushing me and trying to make me better. And I kind of like that it's not that they look down on it, but they don't compliment as much as, like, maybe other coaches would. If I think something good, they're like, no, you have to be faster. You want to be a world champion, you have to be faster. And it's not an insult, but it's just telling you, like, hey, we want more out of you. We know we can get more out of you. So, and that's what I really love. They really push you to see you, push you past your limits. So.
No, 100%. And, speaking of, while we're on the subject, right? I mean, Kenny Johnson and Bolt Wrestling, right? I want to say that, like, you and Alan Joban and a couple of your other teammates actually forged a partnership, a working relationship with both Saxon Muay Thai in Van Nuys and Black House in the South Bay here in Southern California, because, I mean, Coach Julio is not only is he splitting time between Saxon, but he's also there at Black House, as is Kenny Johnson, coming in and teaching at Saxon. And
Yeah.
you yourself received your certificate in Bolt Wrestling proficiency under the great
Yes.
Kenny Johnson. How cool is that?
Oh, that was amazing. Like I said, I'm a fan of learning. I always want to get better. There's always new heights to reach, and that was one of them. I wasn't I don't want to say that I didn't want to get it, but I wasn't so focused on just getting, my black belt. Because if you're focused on too much of a goal, then you kind of just stop after that. Like, oh, let me just get to this finish line, and then it's over. So if you kind of look past that and kind of just, trying to improve, then obviously you'll achieve everything that's right there with it, And I was so focused on, just getting better, just kind of perfecting what he wants as far as, like, wrestling and, all the techniques, that I ended up reaching my black belt, And it's not, again, it's not that I wasn't so focused on getting it, but I wasn't too worried about it, because even if I got it, I still need to be perfect. So if you're just reaching perfection, that's great, because you'll achieve everything along the way. But if you're just achieving one goal, then you're kind of stop it there. Oh, well, I got what I wanted, So who's to say if I was just focusing on getting my black belt, then I probably would have been like, okay, well, now I'm perfect, so I don't need to work on it. When it should be the opposite. It's like, okay, now that you have it, you need to keep it,
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. Now, Don McGuire says, in his personal experience, he died when he let Justine Tish wear her wrestling gear the wrong way, which will probably make a better.
I don't.
Justine herself, we're gonna say shit happens. Shit happens.
Yeah, I personally don't remember that moment, but man, there's so many times where if it was in practice, there's so many times there was times where I'm so exhausted, I forget where my gloves are, or I'm putting one glove on the wrong way. Like you said, shit happens. We all make mistakes, and who knows? Maybe he just kind of let it happen just to have fun. Like, don't say anything, see if they notice after a while. It's just one of those things. yeah, but there's times where I put my gloves on kind of backwards too, or I think I put my gloves, out, and I'm looking for them. I'm like, where the hell are my gloves? So it's just one of those, like you said, the shit happens, or a brain fart, as you want to say it.
Damn right. And Bellator fighter Sergio Debari says, "Hey, sick shirt, bro." Yes, and that is a team. Oh yeah,
It's
yours is fucking awesome.
yeah,
And then mine
combat corner.
happens to
Oh, you're
be
talking about yours. Oh yeah. Let me see. What do you have?
Sergio Debari.
There you go.
Shirt. I'm just saying, Team Debari. There you go.
There you go. I like it.
Just saying. What's yours?
Combat Corner. So this is one of my sponsors. They got gloves, gear, all that stuff. So it's only right to wear my sponsored T-shirt from them, and obviously I have to represent my gym. Coach Julio, Saffron Muay Thai, everybody out there.
Yes. So again, shout out to Combat and shout out to Sergio for the shirts, man. We can't be swag stars like we are without your guys' support. So thank you. Right?
Yep. I like it.
So essentially, training at Saxons, right? How long was it before you took another fight, and what would essentially be the first fight under the Saxon banner, after your first kind of dalliance?
So I think, are you talking like my first fight under Saxons?
Yeah.
So when I first joined, I think, man, it's crazy to say it was such a long time ago when I'm still kind of young. I think I was like training for about, I want to say almost a year, 6, 7 months before I actually took a fight. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I'm a fan of perfection. I'm a fan of learning, so I always wanted to just soak something up and just try to get better in the meantime. I took some smoker fights, which are obviously no longer allowed, but I took a couple of those. But I didn't have my first amateur fight until I think it was April of 2010.
Whoa.
I think it was April of 2010 was my first amateur fight, but I was training with him, or 2021. One of those. It was either 2011. So 2010 or 2011 is when I took my first amateur fight, and I joined his gym like August or July of 2010, I believe. So I didn't fight. So I was doing some smokers, but I didn't fight again until like April. So what's that, like 6, 7 months, something like that, right? I'm not good with math.
Damn.
Yeah.
Now,
something. Yeah.
but I mean, again, that's the level of proficiency that you wanted to show in the next. I mean, essentially, because that first kind of underground fights, that's kind of off the record or whatever. But this was essentially going to be the first fight in your record, your amateur career, and it is to be taken quite seriously.
Yeah, I when I first took that underground fight, again, I did it for fun and I wanted to see how it was like. But after that, I just you try something and you know whether you're hooked or not. And I mean like to the fullest. Not to where, oh, it's nice and for now, like a new toy where it's cool for a few weeks, few months, and then you're kind of like over it. This was something I knew like I wanted to do. Like I just didn't know mentally, I just knew like in my heart and then physically, like I can see myself doing this for the rest of my life. Like training, teaching, well, obviously not fighting for the rest of my life, but in the whole realm of mixed martial arts, like I can see myself doing this for the rest of my life. And I just knew like that, and it's such instilled in me. There's times where I probably should take a day off, whether I'm injured or I'm sore or something, that it's like, no, I have to do something. If I'm not working on, getting better or trying to sharpen something, then I'm just wasting my time. And it's kind of like, what am I doing this for then? If I'm just, gonna half-ass it, can't have one foot in and one foot out, especially with this. And from then on, I just kind of, like I said, going back to my first amateur fight, like I knew this is what I wanted to do. I wasn't trying to like take a couple amateur fights and then call it a wrap. It's like, no, like this is the beginning of me wanting to be a world champion. Even though it was years ago, or me being a world champion was years ahead of me. It's like this is day one.
I think that's brilliant. And again, there's kind of, you become laser focused when you figure out what your purpose is, right? Or whatever that may be. I remember like the first interview that I did. Wasn't great. Probably was with one of your teammates. Wasn't great. But I was just like, wait, this is something. Like, this is something that I should explore, right? So again, you, especially with what you do, as a fighter, as a martial artist, everything is about your mind, body, and soul, and they all have to be in one accord. If you're worried about the argument that you had, if you're worried about the bill you got to pay, whatever, yeah, it's probably not going to happen. So it's something that, especially with you, you literally felt yourself, kind of like a phoenix out of the ashes.
Yeah, I kind of felt like you said, I felt it inside myself, and I think part of it was when I stopped wrestling in high school, I was kind of done after my senior year, and I was kind of like, I'm tired of training, I'm tired of cutting weight and doing all that stuff. But even though my body and I was physically tired, my mentality and like my soul, my heart, they still wanted it, because that's kind of what kick started me wanting to try the MMA fight. And then from there I kind of like almost fell in love again with competing and training and the competition. And that's what, to me, that's why I like it. I like the competition of it. It's not so much because I know a lot of people say like, oh, I love punching people in the face, or I love knocking people out. To me, it's not that. It's deeper than that. For me, it's more of competition in myself. Like, okay, this next camp, how much can I push myself training? This next fight, how much, if can I look a lot better in my next fight than I did my last fight? And it's always trying to reach new boundaries, and inevitably kind of chasing a ghost. Like, nothing's ever perfect, no one can ever be perfect, but that's what I'm trying to strive for. And they just, with the whole underground fighting, that kind of rewoken that urge and that competition to want to do it again.
I mean, it's a rush like no other. Which Sergio says, I didn't mean to hijack the convo. No, your friends didn't hijack anything. Not at all, not at all.
Hey,
And
yeah, we're all in it together.
how has the respect aspect of Muay Thai changed your view of the sport?
It's changed a lot. I think, I'm very, I go everywhere, and something I catch myself like, Sawadee Cup, like bowing, and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm at like the market or something. Why am I bowing? So it's kind of just instilled in me. But it's I kind of had that before I even started doing like Muay Thai or any mixed martial arts, because from the martial arts aspect, they're really big on the discipline and showing respect to your opponent and everything. So I kind of grew up from the age of like 10 to about 18, 19 years old, always like, you're always bowing, you're always showing respect and everything. So that kind of just stayed with me, going into Muay Thai and going into the wrestling and the jiu-jitsu and all that stuff. So, and then it was just kind of double layer with the respect from Muay Thai, where it's like, even though you guys are going hard and all that stuff, you're still showing respect at the end of the day, so it kind of just layered me extra and made it extra, or made me extra respectful. And it also made me a lot more humble too.
Yeah, that it does, and it's crazy. Like Muay Thai, right? A lot of people, especially here in North America, people that get it, but like it's so crazy because even to do a Y crew in a traditional Muay Thai fight, and just to kind of remember that, right, and then still compete. That's just like going on
Yeah.
like Dancing with the Stars and then going to fight. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
doing
So it's kind of like just kind of showing respect for the sport. I would say, to kind of, in a nutshell, it's like you're not just there to fight, but it's an art. At the end of the day, it's an art. And I think doing like the whole white crew and just bowing to your opponent, the coaches, whoever it is, you're showing respect. Sealing out the ring, which most people do. I think that that kind of not forces you, but it gets you in like, look, it's not just some like sport where you're just beating the crap out of each other, but there's a level of respect to this too. You have to respect the art. You have to respect that it's a privilege to step in the ring and compete and do all this other things. So it definitely, it's one whole like art just in that sport.
No, 100%. Now, that first fight, right, as an amateur, as that's on paper on your record, um, what was the biggest difference between the underground, pre Gorgeous George, to what ended up in that particular cage on your first amateur?
Well, the first difference I could actually like talk about it without thinking like, oh man, I don't want, and I don't want anybody to think I'm snitching on the underground fight. I don't want to get in trouble, but um, I think the first difference was that it was actually to be taken serious. And again, even though it's amateur, and when you go pro, you start 0-0, but still, like, that number will still always stick with you, even if it's not counted on my pro record. If I look back at my amateur record, it's still there. The number doesn't change. And for me, it's like, okay, this counts. Kind of like my high school wrestling matches. Like, for the most part, I know what my record was 9th through 12th grade. And no matter what, those numbers are going to stick with you. And I think that's what made the difference. Obviously, the show, you finally get a spotlight, like everything's legit, of course, it's a big stage. Everybody's there watching one fight, two fighters at a time, and that's what made it more real, obviously, and made it more nerve wracking, I would guess. And then, of course, you're going against someone who's training too. It's not like it's a fight on the street where it's like half of these guys probably don't really know how to throw properly. It's like, no, this dude's training for however many weeks to beat you up and to put your head in the canvas, and you're kind of doing the same thing. So it's just a battle of who's going to give.
Now, you talked about earlier about becoming a world champion. So let's take it back, because you are a former CXF, California Xtreme Fighting Bantamweight champion. That is the precursor to what is now known as Lights Out Extreme Fighting, under the tutelage of Sean Merriman, Steve Bass, and George Basamagian. So, I mean, again, your ethos, when you first began, was becoming a world champion, and you attain a title, and especially in a promotion that is, for many people's money, the crown jewel of our Southern California, fight scene. So, what was the fight like, and the preparation for that, and then when you actually, mission accomplished, when you got the gold?
So training for the first title fight. That obviously that was my first one. So it was for me it was every fight's always going to be bigger than the next, but for me that was the biggest one, right? Obviously, it's not just a pro fight. It's main event, and it's for the title. It's kind of like, now you really get the weight of what it's going to be like to kind of become a world champion. So that was really fun, and that's when I really, again, like, my focus kind of just narrowed in even that much more, that much tighter. And it just really made my vision kind of see, like, it just made me realize, like, this is what it takes, to be a champion and to win these tough fights and these close fights. Like, your focus, your training, everything kind of has to be all aligned. And you can't just be like, well, I'm going to train here today and I'm going to train there. It's kind of like you already have a schedule of what you're doing day by day, week by week, what hour you're doing what. Weekend you do this, Monday you do this day you spar, this day you're drilling, whatever it is. So it really kind of forced me, not forced me, but it made me kind of align everything to that way. I'm able to know what or do what I have to do, and it just gave me a sense of, like, professionalism. Like any other person who has a job, like, they have a schedule, and they have to be on that schedule. If they don't, one little thing's off, it might ruin that schedule, or it might ruin the day, or for us, it might mess up the fight. If we didn't do enough of this, then we might end up losing because of it, because we didn't work it enough. So it definitely made me kind of see, like, what it takes. Just gave me a little bit of a taste, like, this is what it takes. And the first fight was great. It was against Steve Ramirez. Shout out to Steve Ramirez, real cool guy. Tough guy. And we were supposed to fight in the amateurs too. Or no, I'm sorry, not in the amateurs. I think earlier in our pro career, we were supposed to fight. And it just never ended up happening. And yeah, we've just been kind of like, of course, in the same circuit, the same, we're all SoCal. So eventually we're going to run into each other. And I remember seeing him at the weigh-ins, and we just kind of looked at each other like, it's about time. This was inevitable. So he's a real cool guy, real tough fighter. So that was a real fun fight. Definitely a hard hitter. I think he had a few knockouts in his career. And obviously, I've it kind of forces you to, like, really be on point, right? You don't want to get caught with one punch, because sometimes that's all it takes. So that fight was really, really exciting.
No, 100%. Which it's funny that you mentioned that. Well, first and foremost, I think it's the first time, right? You kind of don't get the gravity of the situation that's going on, right? And and look no further, not just your example, but also look at none other than Henry Cejudo, right? He has that first match with Mighty Mouse, and it doesn't. I mean, he gets outclassed like crazy, but it makes you want it even more. You're salivating, in ways that you probably didn't before, and you started to see this change. Not just, I mean, he was already an Olympic gold medalist and everything like that. So in terms of like being a competitor and an ardent athlete and everything like that, like it's beyond that. It's beyond that, right? You've attained, some accolades, in karate. You did it in wrestling as well, but it's something different, right? And especially when you get thwarted your first attempt, it looks you're obsessed. You're obsessed.
Yep. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, or maybe I just can't put it in words. But it's you get a taste of it, and it's like you just kind of want more. Kind of like a drug. Like you just become addicted to it. You get like this certain feeling inside you. That you're like I want to do it again. More. So.
No, 100%. And yes, this is going on right now, but this is better than the Holloway fight. So
this is better than the Holloway. Speaking of that, does anybody have any news on that? I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that fight. So, but I'm glad it's entertaining. I'm glad this is entertaining now.
Absolutely.
I'm glad this is entertaining.
Now he's saying, would you say that your fight with whoop-ass Willie Gates was a defining moment moving forward in your career?
I definitely think it was. Obviously he's a UFC veteran. Man, he's tall, he's long, he's rangy, and I've always had trouble. I'm the shorter guy. I'm 5'5". Like I'm not gonna, add a couple inches just to make me seem taller. I'm 5'5" on a good day, So he's almost 6 feet, I want to say, or around. So he was tall. I think it was, and he was my second UFC veteran that I fought. The one before that was for the 135 title, and that was Chris Beal, which was another tough fighter. And yeah, I think it was. I think after beating Willie Gates, I think it was like, okay, I think this is where we kind of take that next step into competition. Maybe not competition, because I was already fighting competition at that time, but it's just kind of just like prestige. I don't know how you would say it, right? It just elevates you a little bit more, and it's like, okay, now you're up here, now, and then then you keep climbing. So yeah, I definitely think that was a defining moment. That was a defining fight. I had just came off a hand surgery too. I broke my hand in my last fight, which was against Chris Beal. Yeah, so and I guess you could say that could have made me or make me or break me too, because what was I going to do in those 3.5 months I was out? I was back in the gym 2 days after I broke my hand. I hadn't even got surgery yet, and I'm still in the gym, like moving around and working my left hand. And so that whole 3 months I really didn't take off. I just didn't use my right hand, with therapy and everything. So it definitely kind of tested me. As like, if you really want it this bad, then you're going to have to start from not ground zero, but below ground zero, because now you have a broken hand and all that stuff. And then to come back and get the finish I did against Gates, it definitely, made it that much more, that much sweeter.
No, 100%. And oh my goodness, I mean, to take it back to, literally CXF 15 back in 2018, I mean, this was, when you look at some of the names, it's kind of astounding, right? We've got a young up and comer, JJ Buckner is on here. We've got Jonathan Rivera. You've got Desmond Torres, Rob Gooch versus Javier Garcia, Daniel McWilliams versus Leon Shabazian. We've got your teammate Kyle Estrada versus Louis Smoka, right? Like
that whole card was that whole card.
It's crazy. You and Willie, and up top is AJ Bryant versus Sergio Perez for the CXF 145-pound title.
Yeah, 145. Yeah,
that's astounding, because a lot of the names that I mentioned are
They're up
UFC,
here.
the pinnacle of the sport.
Yeah, they are, and maybe I haven't said it out loud, but man, CXF or LXF now, they've always put it on great fights. Like there was rarely one fight ever that was, like a kind of like a lackluster to say. They were all exciting because you knew who everybody was, and like you said, like everybody, their level was up here, so you knew who they were. So when you seen a matchup and two fighters get matched up, you're like, oh, I know that person. Oh, I know that person. Oh, that's gonna be a good fight. Oh, they just won and they just won. So the cards were always exciting, and it was definitely, I don't know how to say it, but definitely the hub for SoCal for mixed martial arts. And it still is, even though we can't have any shows right now. It still is. Like when they're able to come back and put on a show, I know they're just gonna pick up where they left off.
No, 100%. I mean, and it's even crazier to think, right? We actually saw I mean, literally a CXF LXF fight in the UFC this past, obviously this past year.
That was right. Yeah, that's right.
Daniel Rodriguez versus Gabriel Green. That's that's one
like
former CXF champion against another CXF notable. Like we saw a CXF fight in the UFC, and it was one of the best fights of the year in a year of crazy, astonishing fights.
yeah, and that just goes to show where SoCal is, for the level of competition. The guys are getting pumped out left and right through SoCal, and they're going on the big stage, and they're showing up. They're showing that like we're no slouches. We come here to fight, and it's going to be a tough fight every time.
No, 1,000%. Now I gotta ask, right? So, once you kind of ascended from the California scene, you'll always be the California staple, but you got to face international competition in M1. Like that's that's your first. I mean, for your first fight being an underground backyard kind of mats paid $100 to you being flown out, to another country to ply your trade.
That was
crazy.
That was something, I'm always gonna cherish it. It's just the fact that it's like when I first started this, going back to like, when I took that underground fight just for fun, I remember telling myself like I'm gonna be a professional fighter, and I'm gonna do this for a living. And then looking about it now, like you said, bringing up, my latest fights and being in overseas, it didn't hit me because I was so focused on just getting better, and I forgot to kind of stop and get a look at the view, because it's like, no, we got to keep going. There's still, there's a lot of time, but there's a lot more improvement we have to make. But I don't always stop and kind of look where, how far I've came. And, going back to that, that was just like, I think I was on the plane, or we were getting our tickets, and I'm looking at it as like, man, from LAX to Kazakhstan, we're stopping at Germany, and then we're going to, I'm like, man, and I remember I told myself this, but I never, not in a million years, did I ever like remind myself, because I was so focused, I just wanted to keep going, that I forgot to kind of cherish it a little bit. But I remember looking at the ticket, and I'm like, man, this is real. Like, I'm really flying overseas, and seeing different countries and different competition, and meeting different fighters, and meeting new people, the promotion, and different people. And it's like, man, me, some kid from Pacoima, like, and is actually doing well, and so looking at that, I'm like, man, this is crazy. And because I have a lot of time, right now, I kind of sit back and I look through photos, and I'm like, man, that was crazy. Going to Kazakhstan, going to Russia, going to Canada,
No, I mean, but why not you? That's what I say. It's like, why not you? And it makes it even sweeter coming from Pacoima. I mean, look at none other than Richie Valens, right? So Pacoima has good stock, good people, salt of the earth that fight for every bit.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. we just have that hardship in us. We have that, I guess, the kind of chip on the shoulder, for lack of a better word. But and sometimes it comes out of me. Sometimes I don't realize I have it, because I'm such a nice guy. I try not to show off or try to be too tough, but that I forget, like, I got a tough side on the other side of me. Deeper in me, I have the tougher side. So yeah, well, I think we definitely have that, like, that fighter in us, like, emotionally and physically. So it definitely, when it comes out, it's definitely worth it.
I mean, I love it. I love it. That's why, I mean, I didn't grow up. I mean, I grew up there, but I wasn't born there. But I mean, the place that I grew up for a large part of my life is Inglewood, California. And a lot of people have this negative connotation. If you listen to rap music, I mean, they say you're from Inglewood, Inglewood always up to no good, right? I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm good. I came out of there, and that's just me. We've had football players, basketball players, Hall of Famers,
Yes.
doctors, lawyers, hell, just parents that have stayed in the home, that again kind of eradicate the stigma that you might have of what we are. And it's just like, fuck you. This is cool. We're cool. Let's roll with it.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you couldn't have said it any better. There's just something inside of us that kind of, keeps us going and keeps us striving for more. And it kind of, like I said, like a hardship, we have that hardship in us. And people may look at it differently, and like, oh, well, like you said, Inglewood up to no good. And it's like, no, there's actually a lot of successful people that come out of places like that, Crenshaw, Compton, wherever those places,
Mhm.
LA. So it's definitely kind of, and I think it kind of does leave a chip on our shoulders, because I'm sure there's a lot of outsiders looking in, thinking that, like, oh, well, it's not a good place. People don't come out of there successful. And it's like, no, they do. You just have to open up your vision a little bit more.
That's it. Breaking barriers, breaking barriers. Now, one thing, I mean, that I know about you, and I think that you will forever be tied to, again, this Southern California, kind of umbrance of talent. And you know, Don McGuire says that SoCal and the high desert are owning it in the sport.
Yeah,
100%. And I
absolutely.
I will take Victorville and San Bernardino. They're a part of us. This is SoCal,
Hmm.
right? But
Hmm.
also, one cool advantage is we're close to the sun. If you like sun, if you're from Sao Paulo or from Thailand or whatever, you're going to
Yep.
come here. So
Yep.
all of the best Muay Thai, all of the best Jiu-Jitsu, all of the best boxing, whatever. It's just because we've got the weather, But you
Yeah.
know, the Midwest is killing it. Like everywhere is killing it right now in terms of the sport of MMA, Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and like you could literally wander in any gym anywhere in the world, and oh, there's a high level fighter like training right there. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. We're taking over, man. We're everywhere. And if they underestimated us back then or now or whatever it is, we're just kind of showing it now. It's like, look, if you didn't believe us, now here's our proof. Like, you got to watch out. We're definitely making a name for ourselves as SoCal fighters.
Nope, 1,000%. Now Don says, Danny Ramirez has crossed your paths in training. What training partners have created that unbreakable bond with you?
Oh man, I think it's like and everybody has it, like a type of brotherhood in the gym. We're not just like acquaintances. We're not just coworkers. We don't show up and just, like, train with each other and then leave. It's like, man, it's a family. Saxons is a family-owned gym, so they keep the family vibe. We try to make sure it's welcoming, and people say hi to you. It's not so much ego, because we're all trying to learn together. There's no reason for me to not want, my teammate, my brother to be successful too. Like, I want to help him because I know he's willing to help me. And Saxons tries to keep that family vibe, because again, it is a family owned business, and we want to make sure that we're all growing together. Like, why not work on like the infrastructure of your core, not your core, but like of your gym, make everybody good, everybody better. That way we keep growing. If I leave somebody behind, then when I need them, it's going to be hard for them to help me because I'm not helping them. It's just eye for an eye. Like if you help me, I'm going to help you. And I think we've kind of kept that bond. I mean, since day one. And I think that's, I'm not saying that other gyms don't have that. I know other gyms do, but yeah, I could tell you personally from Saxons, that's kind of what makes it, such a strong bond, that it's a family owned gym, and it's just been cycling throughout the years like that.
No, 1,000%. Now, I mean, in many ways, what you chose to be your occupation, your lifestyle, it's something that I think fits you well because you come from a family of fighters, in many sense of the word, and none more, powerful than your lovely mother, right? But in Shuri, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
No. I was gonna say, yeah, that's kind of where I get it from. I mean, I get it both from my mom and dad. She was a fighter herself. She was battling cancer for some time. Um, and same thing. She would go through chemo, and a day or two later she'd have to go back to work. And doctors are telling her like, you can't work. She's like, dude, how am I gotta work. I gotta make money. Like I gotta keep going. So she was really tough, and she really kind of engraved that into me as well too. Like even in wrestling, like way before all that happened. Like even in high school, she would always tell me. And she wasn't too well on like as far as like the moves and techniques, but she could just see it. She's like, you need to be more aggressive. Like you can't be so nice out there. Like they're trying to beat you, you gotta beat them. And I'm like, it's coming from my mom. This is kind of funny. She would tell me like, you gotta be more aggressive, Georgie. Like, what are you doing? Like, you can't just give it up like that. I'm like, all right, okay. If she could see it, then obviously there's something I'm doing wrong.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I mean, you've almost, whether you knew it or not, you ensured that the next generation of Garcias are going to be fighters because, I mean, your fiance is none other than California, you know, state champion in her own right.
Yeah,
Come on.
yeah. So yeah. I think she's Spar Star champion, and then the California state champion at 115 pounds. Yeah, Oneida Diaz. Yeah, she's tough. So we're definitely gonna have some tough kids. We've talked about it when we have kids, and I'm like, they don't have to fight if they don't want to. That's totally up to them. I can't force them, but they will know how to fight. They're gonna wrestle, box, jujitsu, everything, and they're not gonna have it easy. So, a couple years from now, they're gonna look at this video, or I'm gonna show them this video, and I'm gonna show them. I remember I had told them in interviews, I have to keep my promise that we can't be easy on our kids, and because that's how I grew up. That's how she grew up. She grew up by that tough lifestyle. Like you got to tough it out. Like you have to fight for what you want. So that's what we're teaching our kids. 100%, they're gonna know how to fight, and if they do end up fighting, oh, that would be great. Again, I'm not gonna force them, but they are gonna compete. They're gonna compete in wrestling. They're gonna compete in jiu-jitsu, and then if they want to take that next level and jump into the ring or jump in the cage and do some boxing fights or MMA fights or Muay Thai fights, then they're in good hands. They're gonna be in good hands.
No, one thing that is probably not going to happen if your kids are wise, they're probably not going to talk back to mom or dad.
No, but I know it gets to the point where they'll get it at a certain age where they think they can take mom and dad, and we're just gonna have to show them that we're still the boss, even though you're good, even though you're a champion. We taught you, so we know the ins and outs of everything. What we show you, we know the counter to it. And if you think you can counter that back, then we just have another counter for it. So it's a never-ending cycle.
One thing that your kids will be able to answer is my mom and dad can kick your mom and dad's ass.
Absolutely. Like, look, if there's ever, God forbid, there's ever a situation like that, but we know we can handle the situation.
No, 1,000%, and that's got to carry a little bit of weight. I mean, it's funny because when kids are like, "Oh, Dad, you're just doing another podcast," Look no further than Phil Collins, because right before COVID, we took my wife to go see Phil Collins at the Forum, and his at the time 16-year-old son Nicholas was drumming for him because his health conditions. And
Right.
out of everything that Phil Collins has done, all of the Genesis stuff, all of his solo stuff, do you know how many songs that Nicholas Collins likes of his dad?
I couldn't tell you.
One song.
One. One
Literally
song.
40 years worth of work.
One
Top
song.
10. I mean, In the Air Tonight. One song, and it's an obscure Genesis track from 1978.
That's funny. That's interesting. Yeah. All those years just for one song, right?
Yeah, yeah. Just saying. So again, it'll be just like, Dad, that's cool. Cool belt, bro.
Yeah, they're always I mean, we don't have kids yet, but I always feel like kids, just from seeing others, they always just kind of look at them like I could be a world champion, multimillionaire, whatever, right? The baddest man on the planet, as people like to say. And to our kids, there's like, hey, that's just dad, or that's just mom. And it's like, no, this is, this person, and that's that person, and they've done this and they've done that. And it's like, oh, okay, so you mean my mom. So you mean my dad. So it's always gonna be kind of just like leveled.
Well, one thing that is absolutely for sure is we actually have video footage of how badass you two are. So again, once they get into that Oculus Rift or whatever, I would play that on repeat.
Oh,
I'm just
100%,
saying.
yeah. It's like, look, don't forget, we are your parents, but this is who we are too. Like, we're not just parents, we're dominating human beings.
Damn right, my man. Now, obviously, George, there has been many people, both personally and professionally, that have helped you get to where you are now. An internationally renowned fighter, experienced fighter, a champion in many respects. So let's get some shout outs out of the way, my man.
Yeah, so obviously my coaches, as hard as I work, if I didn't have them, then I wouldn't be as great, as fast, as strong, and as smart as I am today. So of course my coaches, Coach Julio, who's opened the whole gym for me since the first day I joined. And man, again, he's like a mentor to me. I look up to him. My boxing coach, Coach Robert, my strength and conditioning coach, Coach Taylor, my jiu-jitsu coach, Coach Timmy, and of course we can't forget the one and only Kenny Johnson, my wrestling coach. And shout to them who are always breaking us and making us, and just making us try to be better. Without them, I wouldn't be the fighter I am today. And then of course, to all my teammates, it's a big list, but Kyle Estrada, Keenan Lewis, there's my buddy Chato, my buddy Jaime. There's a whole list. I wish I can really name them all, but there's hundreds and hundreds of people who support me, and even the people who don't train, and just kind of support me. Thank you to all you guys. Of course, my beautiful fiance, who's my future wife, Oneida. She's had my back since the beginning, and she's been there through all the tough weight cuts, the tough losses, the ups and downs. And there's so many people that I can thank. If you're watching it, or if you see this, you know who you are. You're the close ones to me. Again, I wish I could name them all, but it's just too big of a list. But thank you for everybody who supports. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it, Adam, my man. You're awesome, brother. Thank you for having me. And to be continued. The story is to be continued.
Story's still been being written for sure. And a bonus question we've got is from Don McGuire. If you have to put a statement into a time capsule for future generations to open up and read and know about you, one gorgeous George Garcia, what would that
One
statement
statement. One statement. Um, it would definitely have to be something I kind of not live by, but I wake up and I remind myself, like, you have to go 100%, no one foot in, one foot out. You have to be all in. you know um because I wake up and I just remind myself it's another day. You know, yesterday doesn't count, tomorrow doesn't count either. It's just what matters today, and it's just a matter about giving 100% every day. So I think that would be just one statement: 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You know, or I'm sorry, no 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You know, you have to be all in, and that definitely that's something that I live by. Whether it's training, whether it's training people. You know, I try to give it my 100%, and I try to give it my all, and making sure that that they get the best of my knowledge and the best of my techniques and my what I learned. You know, so that would definitely be one thing I would put in the capsule.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, let the people tell the stories of my greatness.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another way I could do. Like, you'll see it. It'll be written in a book or something, or an article in a magazine.
I love it. I love it. That's kind of the way I do it too. So hell yeah. Cheers to that, good sir. But yes, the story's being written again. George, it has been so great to have you here on the According to Woods podcast. Thank you again for setting the time to do this, and I can't wait to see what it will occur from all of this cool stuff that you're doing. Now, again, thank you guys for joining us here at According to Woods. And if you haven't already done so, we warmly encourage you to go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to the According to Woods podcast on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. Yes, we're on Twitch too. George, you would subscribe, right?
Absolutely. I would 100%. If you want to know more about, a lot of the SoCal fighters, again, just like we were talking about it, this is where to find out.
Oh my gosh, that was great. That's tremendous. So again, listen to Gorgeous Georgie, because he knows what's up. And again, if you don't believe George, if you don't believe me, well, here's pro wrestler Zeta Zhang to convince you.
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you